Hi everyone, my name is Joe Barnard, and what you just saw was the first flight in a series of flights that we're going to be doing as part of a test campaign on the Scout D1 rocket right here. So if you're unfamiliar with Scout D1, this is Scout D1. We built this rocket on a live stream a couple months ago. It flew once, technically, although it did fail if you saw the failure and burnout video. But basically this is the first successful flight and the start of a test campaign. So what are we testing here? So for quite a while now, I've been hand assembling these PCBs. And what that means, I have the Signal flight computer here, but what that means is I take a pair of tweezers and I take all of the individual components, there's like 80 or 90 on here, and then I place them with the tweezers, I heat them up with a little heat gun and reflow all the solder, and it's kind of a painful process, and it's a little bit less accurate than having them made by something like a machine, like a pick and place machine or a real assembly house. So we finally moved to machine assembled boards. This is one of the test units here. And what I wanted to do was basically rerun a test campaign on all of the flight software, all of the hardware that's now machine assembled, and that's what this campaign is about. So this is the first flight, and let's take a look at the footage. I set up a ton of cameras around the launch pad. I set up a couple of those run cams. I had a little Fitfort 4K camera, a little GoPro, and I even put my phone over there too. And they all captured slow motion footage. So here are just a couple angles of that. I really love the Estes F13 motor. This is a black powder motor. It's what Scout D1 flew on for the first flight. And these motors, they burn for about 3.5 seconds with an average of about 15-ish newtons of thrust. It's what I've been using for the landing test, and it's what I really love just because if you launch at dusk, the light from the black powder flame burning just looks gorgeous against the sunset. Here are a couple of photos of the flight. It kind of looks like the real thing. Something that went really well with this flight is the stability of the rocket in pitch and yaw. So I recently pushed a big old update to the iOS and Android apps. These are the apps that you use on your phone to communicate with the Signal computer if you have the kit, or I suppose if you're me as well. It's just a really helpful app. Anyway, the app tells you how to tune the rocket. It has a little bit of proprietary secret math in there to help you get the right PID values. So I pushed a big update. If you have the kit, by the way, you should definitely update. It will make your flights better. But that's one of the things that I was also testing, and you can see it's like within 2 degrees or so on pitch and yaw, so it's pretty rock solid. Now after the ascent motor burns out, there's no retro motor. This rocket isn't trying to land propulsively. But what you'll notice is that the vehicle is still really stable. And there are a couple of reasons for this. One is the mass moment of inertia is pretty high on this vehicle, so it takes a lot of force to actually move it. The second is that it wasn't traveling very fast, and so even though it is aerodynamically unstable, it wasn't moving very fast through the air, so there's not a lot of force to actually push it around. Now, for something like Echo back there, that's the landing vehicle, as soon as it gets going fast enough, it really needs those top fins to correct itself so that it can stay upright. But with flights like this, it starts to get me thinking about how much stability do you actually need on the way down? I'm not saying that we shouldn't use the fins, but it just gets me thinking a little bit more creatively about that. I don't know, I'm just sort of talking about what I think about this flight, but basically, after it starts descending, we see the parachutes deploy. It's a pretty successful deployment. I probably should have used 3 parachutes instead of 2, but successful deployment, and the only thing that was not successful was the leg deployment. And it's a little bit frustrating, to be honest, because the legs came really close to deploying. So if you are not already familiar, the way that these, I need a demonstration. Hold on. Okay, so I've got some flight hardware here. This is just a set of legs. We're actually missing one on this side. But basically, the legs are in 3 parts. You have the base that connects to the airframe. You have the actual leg itself. That's pretty obvious. And then you have this little pin right here. It's sort of a strut, sort of a dropout, lockout pin. But once I let go of this leg, it's spring-loaded, and it flips out and then locks into place. This pin relies on the slight overextension of the plastic to lock in place. Anyway, it's a pretty cool design. I'm pretty proud of it, but you'll see here there's a rubber band around this set of legs. And so the way that we release these legs is we cut that rubber band by heating it up a bunch with some nichrome wire or resistance wire. So you pass a bunch of current through it, the wire gets real hot, and it's gonna make that rubber band a little bit melty. Anyway, but what you might see in this photo is that the legs actually came really close to releasing. I just didn't have the pyro on time. That's how long each pyro channel fires. I didn't have it on quite long enough. So the wire didn't release, the rubber band and the legs stayed folded in, even though it came really close. Anyway, okay, so moving on. Just about every part of this flight went super well, so the goal of this test campaign was just to test all of this new hardware, and of course, apart from the legs, which don't really count here, every part of it was pretty smooth. And I figured it might be good for those who aren't totally familiar to go through the flight profile of the Signal Avionics system. So I sort of have the guts of the rocket here. This is a little demo unit that I brought to the National Rocketry Conference. But I have the guts. So this is the thrust vector control mount. This holds the motor, right? It can move in different directions. We also have the flight computer, and it has this little backpack here, and that's a lithium polymer battery that's powering it. So when I turn the computer on, it boots up, it checks some sensors. Okay, and now it is in the pad idle mode. And what that means is it's just trying to save power. So it's only blinking the LED, looking at a couple of sensors, and just sort of staying in its low power idle mode. And you really want this in case your rocket stays on the launch pad for like an hour or two. It's unlikely, but it sometimes happens. So of course, the other thing that I mentioned earlier is this Bluetooth app. So if I have my phone out here, you can see the signal R2. It's right there. I'm not sure how well you can see it. Maybe I'll just put a screen capture on the screen. But you have all of these sensors, you have live readings from everything on the computer. Again, just testing out all of the functionality of the computer. And then when it's time to launch, I mentioned earlier this is the pad idle mode, so there's no thrust vectoring here. There's no correction. But as soon as it detects launch, it happens really, really quickly. It'll start the thrust vector control system. So here we go. And there we go. So it's on now. And as I turn the computer, you'll see the TVC mount tries to correct for the orientation of the vehicle. So I can move it around and it tries to correct. And then if I jolt it down, it'll simulate burnout of the main motor. Boom. So it'll stop thrust vectoring. It's looking for apogee and a couple other things. And just in a second here, so now it's moving all of the data from the onboard flash memory chip to the SD card. And that is basically, well, apart from one other part. Okay, now it's done. These are the happy little beeps that mean our flight is all complete. All of the data is logged, and I could reboot the computer and fly again. Okay, let's move on to some updates now. All right, so the first update is on the Echo landing vehicle. It has been a long time since the last landing test. It's been like over 3 months. The last one was on December 17th of 2018. It was last year, technically. So what's been going on? What have I been up to here? Well, there are a couple of things. The first one is I've added some new software on the flight computer to, we should be able to get more accurate altitude measurements. It was still really hard to get an accurate measurement of how high the vehicle was off the ground with just a barometric pressure sensor. And I've mentioned this a couple of times, but now we're using basically both the barometric data and acceleration data to get a much more accurate altitude reading in the air. So that's coming up. That's pretty exciting. The next thing that is by far so complicated, it's crazy, is horizontal control or horizontal drift control. So what you've probably noticed in a couple of these landing tests is that when the vehicle touches down, it's sliding one way or the other. And that basically means that once it touches down, even if it's sliding just a little bit, it's probably going to tip over. And I don't want that. We want this vehicle to touch down standing up. So getting that horizontal control dialed in is really important. And what this amounts to is the vehicle being able to sense that it is sliding this way and then changing the set point, basically changing where it wants to be pointed just a couple of degrees over so we can cancel out that horizontal movement. That is all done. The code is ready to go. The simulations show that it should work, but we'll see. And I haven't tested it yet because Nashville, for the last, 1,000 years, has been, no, it's not actually 1,000 years. It's like the last 2 or 3 months has been super, super rainy. It's been really hard to find a good day that we can actually do one of these drop tests. But the weather is clearing up, so I'm thinking that can happen within the next maybe 2 weeks. We'll see. Lots of new things to test, so keep your fingers crossed. All right, moving on. The next thing to update you on is the reaction control system. That's the RCS system, if you want to be redundant. But basically, these cold gas thrusters. So what's going on there? Well, if you joined for the live stream the other day on this channel, I actually built this relay reaction control computer from start to finish. I put all of the components on. It was kind of a long process, and I definitely didn't go crazy during it. But yeah, so this is the relay reaction control computer. It's pretty cool. It's got outputs for X, Y, and Z, plus and minus. It's got 2 pyro channels with continuity detection, just like Signal has. It has an output for, or rather an input for battery voltage and for pressure, so we can measure the system pressure and make flight decisions based off of that. It has a couple other things. It also has a output for an arming switch, which is interesting, and I will get into that probably in another video. But yeah, so we've got relay. I've got a bunch more valves on the way for the system. There's a ton of, plumbing is so expensive, man, but there's a ton of hardware to convert from different valve sizes and hose sizes. That's all in the mail. I also have a massive 4,500 PSI air compressor to start doing super high pressure ground tests with. So there's a lot going on with the reaction control system. I'm really excited for it. Oh, wait, I also have the flight tank. Hold on. This is the flight tank for the reaction control system. So this will hold all of the compressed gas. It might be just compressed air, it might be CO2, we'll see. But it goes up to 3,000 PSI, it's 13 cubic inches. It's pretty strong, and it's a little heavy, but this is also a high powered rocket, so things are a little different. How you doing?
I'm good, Jim.
Thank you. I never get these signatures right, man. Thanks. Have a good one.
You too.
Oh my gosh. And this just happened. I'm not even kidding. This like literally just went down. In this box is something really cool. Actually, 4 somethings really cool. So maybe we should take a look at this. This just became an unboxing video. I'm one of those channels now. But let's look. I am so excited for this. I saw this in January or maybe December. I'm not even sure. It was a while ago. And I emailed Aerotech and I said, you need to send me these. I'll pay whatever you need, but I have to have them. There's a lot of peanuts in here. Oh boy, this is gonna be tough. What's in the box? What's in the box? It's another box. Fantastic. What could it be? What could it be? It's something that had to ship with a hazmat label. What did Joey B get in the mail? What do you think it is? This is what I got. This is the Aerotech H13 motor. So this thing burns. I actually don't know the times off the top of my head. It looks like it burns for 16.8 seconds with an average thrust of 13 newtons, I believe, if the H13 is to be believed. But this thing is huge. It's massive. They keep like upping the bar. So they have the G8, they have the G11 that we flew the Electron on. And now this is an H13. So I got 4 of these. I think we're gonna try to fly this in Scout and maybe a couple other rockets. It's so heavy. Anyway, okay, so that's one of the updates. I wasn't planning on that being part of the video, but all right, the other thing that I wanted to mention before I got a mid-video delivery are the blip and blop flight computers. So I have PCBs manufactured. These are ready to go. If you want the files for these printed circuit boards, they are down in the description below. And so yeah, these are ready to go. I'll have to buy components and get these things set up, but before I do any of that, I'm gonna have another video, Landing Model Rockets episode 6, where I go through how do you take these files and get them manufactured by a PCB producer. So we'll go through that. It should be a pretty good video. It might be a little bit shorter than the others. And then we'll assemble them and start working on flight software. And finally, the last thing you can expect coming up is flight number 2 of Scout D1. Instead of an Estes F15, it'll be on an Apogee F10 motor. Flight number 2 has already happened. Actually, flight number 3 has already happened too. If you want more updates, you should follow @JoeBarnard on Twitter. Anyway, that stuff is coming up. Basically a continuation of the test campaign. Should be some more cool flights soon. But thank you very much for watching. My name is Joe Barnard. May your skies be blue and your wind be low.